Hey, welcome back to Storytime with Dad Booker. Today we're going to continue on with Gods and More Gods, and it is Gladys's turn. So we've gotten Ash, Larry, and all these other out of the way. Let's see. And after Gladys comes, I think, Gary. No, Peter. Okay, so let's get Gladys going. Gladys was lounging in a chair and absorbing the vibes of her people. She could feel the intense discussions going on as people planned and created. She could hear thousands of voices and hear each conversation distinctly. In tune with her people, she was at one with them. They were progressing nicely and would be the brains for the advancement of the planet. Her people were industrious on the inside. They studied, analyzed, created, and destroyed all in the name of art and science. In beautiful surroundings, they lectured, debated, and disclosed. Their findings were published and placed in a central library where others could use their findings as a means of progression for their own works. In a loving environment, they propagated. Each new generation was more intelligent, more industrious, and more desirous of creating change. Her population doubled and doubled again. More land was converted into farmland to feed the growing population. Her farmers were constantly seeking seeds to propagate that would increase yield in the same space. The people worshipped her, but in their works rather than in reverence or prayer. As a god not reliant in prayer and content in the level of power she had, she preferred that they continue this way. She led them surreptitiously and not without them knowing it. She was a hidden mainspring from which new ideas flourished. Some came to her and discussed new ideas or asked for assistance when they got stuck. She would answer with questions that led them into new thoughts. In their minds, they had found the answers, had the answers all the time without realizing it. She was a sounding board for them, and by consulting her and thinking how to answer her inquiries, they found the answers. Gladys was proud of the achievements and progress her people were making. As she had predicted, they would be the brains the rest of the planet would need in time. She was relaxed, enjoying the warm glow that came from reflection and introspection. As she contemplated her utopia, she gazed out the window at the group of people who had left. She had allowed them to go and to grow on their own. In time, some of the people from her area had joined them. With the new knowledge acquired, they had grown in a different direction. They were the builders, the craftsmen, the creators of works. She saw them now clearly in the distance. Their constructions contained wood, brick, and metal. They were experimenting with different binding agents, and their tests would last for years. They bartered food when needed with machines, art, and labor. Their intelligence was an innovation of materials. They could mold anything to any shape and use. She was proud of their achievements, and seeing that they were progressing in a different direction, she had allowed them to continue. Progress was progress, after all. In both areas, she had progress, but in only one did it show outwardly. Don arrived in a hurricane wind. He was furious that in each of the areas he had visited, he had been soundly tossed out. Ash was no longer his stooge, and Larry was no longer the lazy oaf. Both had somehow earned the respect and love of their people. To make matters worse, their areas were more advanced than his own. Now, that was a bitter pill he had to swallow, but instead of accepting his failure, he placed the blame on others. He was the favorite of the overgod, commanded by them to ensure the success of the mission they had been given. He knew he was right in how he was handling things. He was their god, and it was up to him to dictate what they did and how. A god must be God, after all. In this he sounded much like the first god had sounded, who also had been under Karen's control without realizing it. Since Karen had created the initial spirit, she should come out an easy winner. She knew how the people should respond. The problem was that these new gods were being diligent, focused, and loving. Well, most were. Don was now doing an inspection on Gladys's area and felt that here he would be on more of an even footing. Gladys was passive by nature and would bow before his fury. He would mold her in his image, and then she would follow wherever he led. Don chanced to blow in on the group who had separated. They were constructing marvels that were a combination of form and function. They weren't farming, as they preferred to trade for the food they needed, apart from what they received through hunting and foraging. In their midst was Dionysus. He found this group intriguing. Under the leadership of James, now of a goodly age, the small colony had grown. Its membership was increased not only by their own efforts, but by the inclusion of those who no longer were content to sit and think. Those who wanted strenuous activity sought it out near the mountains. Here life was harder, but in the daily challenges, people found purpose and honor. Their very hardships were a badge of worth. Not that they belittled the people who lived and strove beneath Gladys's loving care. They reaped benefits through intercourse and trade. Don did a tour of inspection, and their construction efforts pleased him. He could see the results of hard labor and diligence. This activity was a far cry from what he had expected from Gladys's passive nature and influence. He expected something more pastoral, something placid and beautiful. Yet here was hard living and strenuous activity. Here was progress he could understand, something he could reach out and touch on a majestic scale. He approached James with an outstretched hand. James was busy when Don approached him, and he didn't accept the outstretched hand immediately. Don bridled at being ignored and cleared his throat. James turned around and acknowledged him with a nod and turned back to his work. Don grabbed him on the arm and swung him around. "You obviously don't understand the manner of being who's standing before you," he announced angrily. James finished tightening the plate on place before turning around. "And you don't understand the manner of power you would have faced had the panel not stayed in place. You are dealing with forces you don't understand." Don almost laughed in the man's face. "You're a bit of an arrogant ass. I like that. No matter what force you have behind that plate, it could not affect me. You see, I'm a god. In fact, I am the god." Dionysus decided to have a little fun with Don. He knew that Don wasn't as strong as he thought he was. After all, he wasn't getting the reverence he required for full power. It was on minimum god levels. Any blast wouldn't seriously harm him, but it would shake Don up some. Dionysus let the door slip and fall. No one but Don was within blast range. Dionysus cast a stream of oxygen and activated the pile of sodium and potassium held in a cup with an iron ball on top. The activation caused a minor explosion that shot the ball forcefully into Don's chest, sending him sprawling. It took a moment for Don to recover. The shock shook him more than the shot. James was having a hard time fighting back his laughter. "So, you're a god?" "He must be one of the smaller gods then." He extended his hand to help Don up. Don pulled himself up to full height, which placed him at the top of his head at chin height on James. Dionysus was ready should Don explode, but to his surprise, Don laughed it off. "You must be the dominant people in this area." Don waved a hand in the direction of all they had constructed. "How many people live with you?" "Well, we number it over 1,000, but we're growing. Our children are courageous and strong. They'll learn more than we could teach them from those in the capital. Those and we are strongest together, for each has something the other needs." James clasped his hands together as a show of the strength they shared. He pointed to the distance where Don could see the complex built to house Gladys's people. Don excused himself and walked towards the capital, reminding himself to act like a god. He willed himself there. This was not only a faster means of transportation, but one that would emphasize his superior god qualities to James and his people. Arriving at the tower, he could see the penthouse, with Gladys looking down over her dominion. She seemed relaxed and happy, a fact that irritated Don. She used to stay keyed up, anxiety over meeting the schedule so she could keep her constantly checking on things. Stomping up the 547 steps to her penthouse didn't improve his humor any. He had a hard time functioning as a god because no matter what, he was thinking like a human. He never reached out to feel the mood of his people. He always had to do things hands-on. Trust such as Gladys had was beyond his capabilities to understand. He pounded on the door and waited. Gladys didn't answer since everyone knocked, then walked in. The door was never even locked. Don waited and pounded for 15 minutes before trying the door. He barreled in, seething. "Why don't you open the damn door?" He roared. Gladys took a sip of tea and smelled. It was open. Don went to the window and pointed at the village he had just left. "How much time have you spent with that group over there?" She shrugged. "Not much. If they need me, they know where I am." She went to the teapot and poured another cup. She placed it on the table near him. She sat and indicated that he should as well. "Don, my people are doing well, and we are ahead of schedule in the areas I have deemed necessary for the completion of our mission. We're ahead because I leave that group alone. They're doing the muscle work while those here do the brain work. The two cross over when needed, and we have greater progress." Well, Don could only understand progress he could see, and that progress is not being accomplished in her comfortable tower. Don rose and hovered over Gladys, glaring down at her. "You need to be focused on that section. Leave their little palace to fend for itself. There is where the real progress is being made." Gladys raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Don, if there is great progress there, as you say, it has happened because they enjoy perfect autonomy. They come to us for assistance when they need it. Some of my people here transfer over and bring their wisdom with them. I won't ruin a perfectly good system on your say-so." She inclined her head and settled more comfortably in her lounger. Gladys was content to remain at a low level of godhood. She and Don were about equal in power, though neither knew it. Gladys received reverence occasionally, and when it pleased her, she wasn't relying on it. She didn't ask for it and didn't even have a place of worship. People praised her in their hearts and minds when they were enjoying the gifts she gave them. Don threatened to go to Fred and informed him that all the gods were destined to fail and that he should become the supreme deity in order to ensure success. Gladys drained the last of her tea. "Okay, do so. And allow the first place to be inspected to be your own. I doubt you would be a god long." Don smirked. "I have been called and visited by Fred's boss. They are relying on me to check every section and ensure success. So let Fred know that I'm doing this under his god's authority. You can be damn sure he'll place me in charge." Don left in a puff of smoke and flame. The carpet where he had been standing had been burnt through. She calmly waved her hand and repaired the damage. "Well, time to do a walk around." She stood, stretched luxuriously, and went to do her rounds. Okay, next is Peter. I think I'll do Peter and Gary together. That's two very short chapters. So that's our next readings from Gods and More Gods. You know where you get it. So that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you again on the next reading, which will be in another 3 days or so. So in the meantime, be good to yourself, and have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.